Hey guys, I am Big and Scary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay from Team Echo Gaming, this time featuring in our top left-hand side, Ostron, also known as Pikachu from Team Echo. So Echo's Pikachu is Ostron. We're on Heart of the Swarm, which explains the name change, and I apologize. I had an earlier cast between Ostron and Crowbar, I believe, and he did very well, but I had no idea who he was. And it turns out it's Pikachu, which is cool because now we have Pikachu versus GoOdy. Oh man, every time I see the capital O, I think it's a D for whatever reason. I want to say GoDaddy, but no, it's GoOdy, and GoOdy's very famous. I have absolutely no idea why I say that. He's always had his name like that. He's part of Team Escape, and that's basically it. He's played Terran for the last several years. Very, very good, especially with tank and mech control. Not a big fan of bio, evidently. But Pikachu is also a fan of mech. I've cast a couple of his games today, and very, very big fan of mech, and he does it very, very well, especially if he can push back all sorts of engagements and kind of delay the enemy, and then eventually wind up in the mid and late game. And once we hit that late game, he rolls house. And so GoOdy has got to be aware of this. He's got to know that if he's going to be pushing Pikachu later and later in this matchup, and you know what, just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to call him Ostron from here on out, just because that's his name right up there, and if that's what he wants to be called, that's what he wants to be called. So if as this game progresses, as Ostron builds up his Terran war machine, as he gets up that infrastructure he needs to, GoOdy's got to keep pace. GoOdy cannot afford to drop back and sit back and allow himself to macro if Ostron gets up that siege tank line that's so incredibly intimidating. GoOdy can let that snowball and get away from him pretty quickly. All things considered, pretty traditional opening from GoOdy. He's got that first barracks, got that first refinery. He's going to be working on some form of tech, probably an add-on onto the barracks, but knowing him, it's probably just going to be straight into the factory because he just really likes that Terran mech. And then Ostron has also grabbed his early refinery, probably going to be an add-on onto the barracks with a factory directly underneath it. So whatever add-on gets added to the barracks is going to be used by the factory. And this is pretty telling. GoOdy has his SCV located right there just to see that that factory is indeed there. He really wants to scout what add-on is going to be added to the barracks. However, it looks like Ostron's going to be holding off, wait for that first Marine to be produced, wait for him to push back that SCV before he adds on the add-on. And I wouldn't be surprised to see if GoOdy blows a scan just to see exactly what shenanigans are going on here. Based on the location, it's a safe assumption that's going to be a Reactor Hellion sort of mix. But I've seen, last time I saw Terran versus Terran with Pikachu, he actually built a tech lab, and he built some Infernal Preigniter. Now, that was back in Wings of Liberty. This is indeed Heart of the Swarm. Total new ball game. You get that Reactor Hellion, you get a bunch of Hellions out there, get a starport, throw some Hellbats in that mix, and you got yourself a stew. It's terrible. I mean, those Hellbats are just so powerful whenever you're dropping, and this is the previous patch, so those Hellbats do only take up 2 space. So you can have up to 4 Hellbats in one medevac. I believe they changed that the most recent patch. GoOdy is also progressing along that 1-1-1 route. He does have a reactor that's going to be used for the factory, producing a Widow Mine, which is going to be very cool because, depending on the positioning of that Widow Mine, he could shut down the drop potential from Ostron, no problem at all. Nice wall off here completed for Ostron. He's not making motions like he wants to push out and take any form of an expansion. He's going to be pretty much going all in with this drop play. Needs to do a lot of damage with it. Hasn't started producing that medevac just yet, but he's a little bit broke. He's also supply blocked, but that supply depot will be finishing in just a couple of seconds, allowing him to get just enough money to produce that medevac. He's got 2 more Hellions on the production tab right now. He's going to be able to load up that medevac as soon as it is indeed completed. Also building that armory so he can warp them into Battle Hellion mode or Hellbat mode or whatever the name is. Tech Lab finishing on that factory. What's that going to be for? Remember, he produced that single Widow Mine. Did he actually finish the Widow Mine? He did, and he's positioned it right over here inside the Shroud, which is exactly where you'd expect the first drop to go. And since they're cloaked, I mean, that is a very, very good position for GoOdy. He does have that tech lab on the siege tank producing factory, so that first siege tank is going to be coming out. Remember, you don't have to research siege tech anymore, so GoOdy's going to be using that full well aware of the fact that those siege tanks are even more aggressive, even more even faster at getting them out and actually doing damage. First Viking is also out. It's surprising to see it camping in the middle of the base rather than going far afield trying to intercept this medevac that you know is on the move from Ostron. He's loaded up with those Hellbats, already in Hellbat mode. There goes the boost. Excellent position here from GoOdy, man. He is totally aware of every angle that Ostron can push in, and this is just showing you how incredibly powerful all of those Hellbats are. We switch over to the resources, the units killed tab. 5 workers killed. Resources lost is going to be pretty much neck and neck because those are very expensive, but what's more telling is the fact that the harvester count has gone down, and GoOdy's on only one base. He can only produce those SCVs one at a time. He's limited in the amount of mules he can pull down, so that's a significant chunk of his mineral income down the drain. And because of that, I think GoOdy's going to have to push out and do a little bit of damage prematurely. I think he'd normally want to wait for a couple more siege tanks, a couple of his upgrades to finish, but instead he's pushing out with 0 Marines, just a single siege tank, and 2 Vikings. That's really not enough to do any damage. But no, actually he's just taking an aggressive posture. He's just hanging out down the natural. Maybe he's thinking about getting a natural. I don't think that would be a wise decision just because of the amount of damage that Ostron has already done. I think GoOdy's just waiting around for the next siege tank to pop out. 2 Widow Mines currently being produced for Ostron. Interesting decision to move away from the Hellions, but still maintain using the reactored factory. Throwing on another factory on top of that, probably going to be using the tech lab with the other factory. See another add-on being added to that one, and Ostron feels comfortable enough to actually push out and take an expansion on the back of his very successful harassment. There's that second siege tank that GoOdy was waiting for. Now that he's got the Vikings to scout the high ground, now they've got 2 siege tanks to shell out a lot of damage. Excellent scan there from Ostron. Just going to be exposing the 2 Widow Mines to the fire, but good reactions there. No. Excellent scan from GoOdy, exposing Ostron's Widow Mines, showing off Ostron's reactions, quickly pulling back the Widow Mines before he took another volley, bringing them down into the red but not dead, allowing them to reposition. Ultimately going to be a good decision there. Looks like another drop is going on back at home. Ostron has succeeded in crushing so many of these SCVs. Wow. There are no SCVs on the field right now. 28 workers killed. Are there any workers killed? 2 workers currently in existence for GoOdy. It looks like GoOdy has succeeded in crushing the front door, supply blocking Ostron, but he does have quite a lot of Widow Mines currently out on the field, 5 of them. There goes the scan from GoOdy. At the same time, the Hellbats from Ostron are going to town on the infrastructure back at home for GoOdy. He's pretty much broke. He can't really produce anything else. Got a single more Viking on the production tab. Single siege tank from Ostron is trying to stem the slow push of so many siege tanks, but GoOdy is doing such a good job keeping them alive, keeping them just out of range of the siege tanks, using his Vikings to scout the high ground to focus down those siege tanks. However, the orbital just went down. Did it get lifted off? No, it went down. So there's no orbital, there's no scan, and that means these Widow Mines are going to be able to, once they recharge, do quite a lot of damage if GoOdy decides to push in with anything besides his artillery fire from those siege tanks. And all at the same time, Ostron is still mining. He's got quite a lot of money. In fact, he could probably afford just to lift off, move his orbital somewhere else, and just re-macro, because there is no potential for GoOdy to ever re-macro. He doesn't have enough money to produce CCs. But I think Ostron doesn't want to give up his home base just yet. He's got excellent infrastructure. He's got quite a lot of Widow Mines waiting, just praying that GoOdy gets impatient and pushes in with his Marines. Bunker up on the high ground for GoOdy's going to be stemming back any sort of push Ostron would want to make. And really, he just can't create enough Vikings to deal with the 2 Vikings that are currently out on the field cost effectively. They're just target them down. Speaking of targeting down, the siege tanks have taken care of that bunker, but GoOdy has already withdrawn his Marines, pushing with one of his Marines, hoping to get close enough to trigger the Widow Mine so that it would waste its charge on a single Marine. It's flirting, coming in just kind of flirting with that Viking, poking in, just getting range of those siege tanks. The siege tanks just continually shelling down damage on that orbital. GoOdy's starport, which had lifted off from back at home, has finally arrived to provide some much needed vision of those siege tanks. One of the Vikings from Ostron has pushed in just to provide a little bit of vision so that the siege tanks from Ostron had managed to target it down, equalizing the siege tank count. We've got 2 siege tanks with 7 Marines in favor of so many Widow Mines. I really don't see how GoOdy can afford to push in with so many Widow Mines going to be crushing all of his Marines if he ever decides to push. And then with the number of siege tanks totally equalized and the fact that Ostron is still mining, this is looking increasingly grim for GoOdy right now. He's totally broke. He's managed to spend pretty much every resource he has. Oh, here comes the push. Here comes the push. All the siege tanks have managed to crush all the SCVs. The siege tanks have repositioned. But on the 0 hour, the Hellions have arrived. The Hellions have managed to waddle all their way up from GoOdy's home base, gets the surround on the SCVs, the flank, and finally landing his Vikings. Those Vikings and GoOdy being super mannered. But that was the closest game ever. What a pull, pulling every single one of his SCVs, sacrificing them in the vain hope that his Widow Mines could land, and only one of them manages to survive that push, but it buys just enough time for all the siege tanks to reposition themselves within range. And then even those siege tanks were going to go down at the 0 hour, the hero Hellbats finally arriving, barely just killing that siege tank that was on the low ground there, who was so very, very weak. But then the one up on the high ground giving just one final gasp and finally going down. So very, very close. Hats off to GoOdy for making it last that long, because he had no economy. He was being so very, very careful against the hidden dangers of all those Widow Mines. Man, I would have been so nervous. And then Ostron for keeping his head, realizing, you know, I'm winning right now. I've got an economy, got my infrastructure up. I can just afford to let these guys eat away at the infrastructure of GoOdy. I don't have to force the engagement. GoOdy has to force the engagement. Let him make the first move. Let him make the mistake. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I liked it a lot. Thank you, Pikachu, Ostron, whoever you are. And thank you, GoOdy. And thank you for watching. If you guys have a comment, you could leave a comment. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Big and Scary.